And we are white. And let's go e4. And c5. So we can go for an open Sicilian. We can go main line. But let's do a Smith-Morra. We got to do a Smith-Morra. That is the OG line for people who want something very tactical. 4974. Man. Thank you, guys. All right. So c3. Smith-Morra. Lovely opening. I'm not baiting anybody. Yeah, so he takes it. Nice. Accepted Smith-Morra. Okay. Now, I will preface this by saying I'm not a Smith-Morra expert. I actually don't know it virtually at all, but I would imagine that it involves developing your pieces actively. So basically, these pieces go here. And, well, let's continue developing. Knight f3, I think, is the move. And then bishop c4. Yeah, so we're just developing. And yeah. He disconnected. He's having, okay, e6 is correct. Okay, so I'm already out of book. Okay, I'm already out of book, but you know, this guy is playing very well. All right. So again, we shouldn't, I think, really modify our strategy too much. We should complete our development, and to do that, we have to castle first, right? Castling allows you to pay more attention to attacking, because if your king is in the center, that's always in the back of your mind. Thank you, Silent Spaz 91. I think I went wrong here somewhere. I mean, this isn't. He's not supposed to be able to get the bishop here. I think knight f3 is actually a mistake. I think you're supposed to start with bishop c4 for that reason, but it's okay. We'll make something of this. Okay, knight f6, which I think gives us a good try. Now, the Gambit mentality dictates that, you know, the statute of limitations on exploiting the compensation is limited. If he goes bishop e7 and castles, we're going to run out of compensation. So the move comes very naturally here, and there's some calculation involved, but we're going to play it quickly. Thank you, Colorado and all correct, both of you, for the prime. These subs are awesome. Okay. e5. Okay. Now, you might look at this and say, wait a second. D takes e5, and then we either have to trade queens, which is bad for us because we've sacrificed a pawn, or we just have to give up 2 pawns. But he doesn't do it, unfortunately, which doesn't allow me to explain why this would have been good for white. So I'm going to write this down. Thank you, Nauseous Maxime. All right, so knight h5. There's a lot of stuff that's wrong with this move, right? It's just it puts the knight on the side, and he's basically giving us what we want. And I think there's a very simple move. If we think about it, if we look at the knight on h5. Okay, guys, seriously, it's funny, but let's focus on the game, okay? I'm putting a lot of effort to this. You know, I'm all for having fun, but I also want to stay on track. So h3, yeah, h3 is very strong because it attacks the bishop. Bishop is nowhere to go. He takes on f3. We take back and we fork everything. If he goes to f5, we have another very elementary fork with g4. And this is basically just losing. Queen takes f3. Just look at this. I mean, knight is hanging. Pawn is hanging. He maybe stays alive. Ah, no, d5 doesn't stay. What happens if d5? What do we? And I think he's going to do it. What do we do if he plays d5? There we go. We have a very tactical move here if you guys wanted, but bishop b5. The simple move is bishop b5 check. But if we want to be insane, what should we do? What is the insane move? And the reality is it's not insane at all. It's winning. So check, of course, wins the knight. But let's go knight takes d5. Gambit mentality where our queen is out. His king is in the center. He's not developed. His knight is also hanging, so it's very low stakes, right? Worst comes to worst. Look at how many threats there are. It's quite simple. Well, I'd respectfully disagree with starting. The thing is, I don't like banning people for any reason, particularly when they're just innocently trying to make a joke, but, you know, sub only is a way to sort of calm everyone down a little bit. Queen takes f7. Checkmate. Checkmate to His Majesty. Okay. So, again, pretty straightforward game. Smith, Morra, Gambit. Now, if you're black and you want to avoid the sort of the craziness, then knight f6 is a very good move here. This forces a transition into the Alapin after e5, knight d5, which the Alapin we've played in the 5-minute speedrun, of course. But anyways, he takes. And yeah, I think knight f3 is wrong, or I went wrong somewhere. Bishop g4. Maybe somebody can tell me, what am I hallucinating here? Yeah, I think this is the move. Thank you, Josh Waxio, for the tier 1. I think bishop c4 is the move to disallow the bishop from coming out to g4. All right, so knight f3, bishop g4. Anyway, we go bishop c4. Now, if he goes knight c6 here, we have a very typical tactic. We can take on f7 and knight g5 and win the bishop, so that's just something to bear in mind. Thank you, Potato. So he did everything right until knight f6. He should have started with knight c6, and I think black is doing great here. But let's understand why this is good. After d takes c5, the thing that everybody has to realize is that the fact that the queens are off the board does not mean we don't have attacking chances. We not only have attacking chances, we have a big attack. We're, first of all, attacking f7. He's got to drop his bishop back. We can't give a check here. Well, we can maybe, but we can just get our bishop out, and everybody should see how much trouble black is in, despite the fact that the queens are gone. Rooks on c1 and d1. Other knight can come to b5. This is super nasty. So the rule is that you don't want to automatically rule out an option that trades queens when you are down material. The queen trade does not, it lessens the probability of a strong attack, but it certainly doesn't make it impossible. Okay, so can you play g4? You can, but then maybe knight takes g4. Black is holding on here because the bishop is simultaneously defending everything here. Anyways, after knight h5, h3, it's basically all over. Bishop f5, g4. And again, here we have two pieces hanging, so we need to consider, well, what if one of them moves with check? That would be this move, pick up a knight. But this is even better, I think, because, I mean, just look at the amount of threats that we have. You don't need to calculate anything here. Boom, boom, and boom, and boom, and the game is over. Okay. No, Bruges sucks. Lono sucks. This entire community is horrible, basically. Does d5 after e5 do anything at all? Asks Malcolm Tucker. Good question. d5 is not a dumb move at all. Not a dumb move at all. Because it counterattacks the bishop. And if we give a check on b5, and this is where you have to be very careful. This looks like it wins a piece, but it doesn't. Is this very same knight that is hanging can move back and block the check, and black is good. Thank you, Osari Bari. But I think we can take here, we can basically do the same thing that we would have done otherwise. We can take the queen and go knight e5. This pawn just adds to the heat. You know, then we can get our bishop to g5 and set up a discovery. So this is quite similar. But it's a great question, and these are the kinds of moves that you should consider. Okay. Any questions? Right, exactly, Mr. NWA. All right, guys. Looks like we're all clear. And the time has come for me to call it a night. Oh my God, or not. Holy smokes, 25 from Proffer. My lands, girl. Damn, girl. 25 from Proffer to put us back over 5,000. I mean, that's just insane. And I don't think Proffer realizes I'm actually sitting on the chair. Oh my lands. Captain Cola with 10. Holy mama. What is going on here? Chess Jacob with a 13 months. That definitely deserves another game. That's definitely worthy of one more. Well, and again, every time I try to leave, you know, this just represents how toxic the community is. You're paying me to leave. Well, you failed because I'm staying for one more, but only one more. So don't get any ideas. Thank you, RCY10 for the prime. Okay, one last one. Game 3. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it, Braffer. Appreciate it, Captain Cola. And everybody else. Okay. Okufa. So D4. All right. This spam red. Whoa. 3 subs from Red Sweater. And this I spam. So we're going to play it very traditionally. We're going to play a Queen's Gambit declined, which is the OG solid. Okay, he plays G3. He doesn't go for the Queen's Gambit. I can't keep up with this Vibron FC thing for the prime. Now, G3 is a move. It's not particularly dangerous. And, you know, if you play the Queen's Gambit declined, there's a temptation to play E6 in this position, much as you would. But the issue with G3 is because he doesn't immediately challenge our center, he allows us, much like in the Caro-Kann, by the way, to bring the bishop to F5 and only now to play E6, right? Our bishop is outside the pawn chain. This is like an ideal setup. Basically, this is a London setup. Now, what moves are played in a London setup? Well, often we go H6 to give the bishop a little bit of luft on H7. So let's go H6 now. Let's make sure that moves like knight H4 are going to be rendered innocuous. And knight C3, as we've discussed, is a classic inaccuracy at this level because he's blocking the C-pawn from coming to C4. Now our center is going to be super, like, as solid as it gets. In fact, we can go C5 if we want to, but I don't see the rush in doing that. Let's complete our development. Bishop D6 is fine. Bishop B7 is, let's go bishop B7. Maybe bishop D6 he would have gone knight B5. And now let's castle. He's not threatening E4 because we've defended it 3 times. He's only attacking it twice. And now I think we're ready to play C5 if he gives us the opportunity. Knight H4. Okay, well, that's exactly why we played H6. Okay, so what he's doing is actually a legitimate idea. I'm kind of impressed. But in this position, it's not going to serve him too well, I think. He's going E4. He's opening up the center. Now we have a couple of ways to meet this. We can take on E4. Let me think, actually. This is actually not so simple. Because there's many appealing options for black. Now the simplest is to take everything on E4, and you'll notice that he'll be missing a fianchettoed bishop, so his king becomes a little weak. But I also notice that this is a liability. Like, the idea of bishop takes H4 has to be considered. So what clever sequence do we have here? Using the fact that this knight is potentially vulnerable to a capture, which would ruin his pawn structure, conceivably. Knight takes E4 as the start. Now there's issues with this. Now we take intermezzo on H4. Currently we're up a pawn, right? If he's very clever, he'll go knight C5 here, but he takes. Now we take, we've ruined his pawn structure, and depending on what he does, if bishop takes C4, we've got other cool ideas there. Yeah, unfortunately we can't take here because I think he takes on B7 and wins our exchange. Although that's still something to consider, maybe a sack. But that's not the way that we play with black. We play super meat and potatoes. But we also don't have to take on E4. And the issue with taking on E4 is that he gets a rook on E4, which could lift to G4. You guys should be able to see that that's a little unpleasant. So he's not really threatening to take our bishop. You know, just take with the king, that's fine. So what move would be the sort of the Zen approach here? Well, B6 blunders the rook, right? B6 he takes. Yeah, knight C6. If he takes the knight, great. You know, for the small price of doubled pawns, we get opposite colored bishop, which in a middle game favors the attacker. He takes the bishop correct. He'll probably give us a check here. But we actually are forking 2 of his pawns, which is funny, but true. Stricken off the record. Well, C6 would do the same thing, but we actually also develop a piece, right? So we're doing the same thing that C6 does, except we are also developing. All right. And I'm going to reward myself with a cracker. Okay, rook E4 is great. This guy is good. But now it's time to make things go boom. we have a small window of opportunity. His bishop is not yet developed, which means that he's undermanned on the king side. So if we can just pry things open, if we can get things flowing, if we can open the center, which means if we can take this pawn at any cost, then he's going to pay the price for this. And so e5 is possible, but f5 is more forcing. e5, he could have played d5, kept the center closed. Although that's still good after knight d4. But f5 forces his rook to move. If it goes to f4, then we go e5, and we win. And if he takes on e6, we play knight takes d4, hitting the rook, discover to check ideas, and that seems very nasty. Yeah, so after this game, before I leave, I'll read the Reddit thread and then I'll address it, and then I'll go. Boom goes the dynamite, that's right. So rook f4 e5 is good because it attacks the rook, right? And he can't take the pawn because his queen is undefended. Okay, his queen, everybody should see this. That's exactly why we need to act with urgency, because the moment he gets his bishop out, the queen is no longer undefended. We no longer have this kind of tactics. We don't have a discovered attack or discovered check because the queen can take the knight. But it's okay, we're going to take on h4. We're just going to do some Reddit React chat. We're just going to Reddit Reacts. Okay. But yeah, we're done after this game. All right. Let's snag this pawn. So my match tomorrow is at 6 Eastern. 6 p.m. Eastern. It's going to be broadcast live on chess.com, like twitch.tv/chess. There's going to be an official commentary. And I'm playing Eric. Yeah, okay. Rook g3. All right. Well, that's a good move, for sure. So we don't really have to do anything fancy here. One idea would be to bring this guy into the game and create an extra against his queen. Yeah, f4, he would have taken our knight and simultaneously pinned the queen. I considered that move, but it doesn't work. All right. Yeah, this is bad for white, of course, but yeah, Ludwig is still alive. That's insane. Now, what are we actually threatening here? Is a good... Well, we're not... Again, careful about these checks because both of them the queen can take, but what are we actually threatening here? We are threatening something. And we can play this something here, I believe. So first of all, yeah, f4 is possible already. But I'm talking specifically about this discovery. Do we... Yeah, knight b3. Knight b3 attacks the rook in the corner. So f4, rook g4 might be a little bit iffy. f4, he'll go rook g4 and attack the queen. So I don't see a compelling reason not to play knight b3. Yeah. Now, with such a thing, you have to be very careful. If you look at this g7 pawn, this would be a thing you should identify and say, well, if his queen can get to a square where it attacks g7, that'll be a mate threat. But he can't. If you look carefully, nowhere he can't go anywhere with his queen that threatens mate. Okay, queen f3. Just double checking. There's no shenanigans. Yeah, we can take the rook. And it's over. You know, we have to be a little careful here. Our king is a bit weak, but other than that, it's just winning. Yeah, queen takes b7. Yeah, let's get down to business here. We can throw in a check. Then this knight, now this pawn is controlling the 7th rank. So we can take on c2 and swing the knight around to e1 with devastating effect. We can also swing the queen to e4. There's a lot of possibilities here. Let's go knight e1 check. Thank you, Shasta. Okay, check. Now who sees the follow-up? What's the follow-up here? It looks like we may have screwed up because our 2 pieces are hanging. But I've seen this. If you have good tactical vision, you'll see that there's checkmate in a couple of moves. No, not queen c4. That blunders the queen. It starts with rook e1, and if he takes the knight, we have queen e4 checkmate. You can stave... Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Nice. And how do you find this? You just solve puzzles and stuff. Like, that's just not... There's no secret formula. It's just what it is. All right. Honestly, I'm a little... Whoa, Shasta with 5. Thank you. Shasta. Worth and Wildish Clambin. 0 with a prime. Tons of subs. No, I'm going to go. So that was a simple game. I think the only interesting moment was this knight takes e4 and bishop h4. I'll just point very quickly out that had he... I think the correct approach here for white would have been knight c5. Because that counterattacks b7. And it's a double-edged position here. But I kind of relied on him to miss it, and he did. So in a classical game, I would have done something perhaps a little bit different. But this setup with knight on c3 is risky, because if white doesn't get e4 then white's going to be out of a plan. And we, on the other hand, have this lever still available with c5. So his plan was very reasonable, but it didn't work out. And in this position, again, we're attacking these 2 pawns. If he takes, then we're still attacking. Our bishop is going to contribute through the light squares, which he doesn't have any control over, which is what makes these positions so difficult. Okay, very quickly, before I go, I know you guys want me to specifically read out the Reddit post. Now, this is not an attempt to put down, all of the criticism by no means. In fact, I'm acknowledging it. Let me just find it. I'll read it off to you. So, Naroditsky speedrun has been misleading. It reads, I've been enjoying lately watching Naroditsky speedrun, and obviously it is great, and I find it very instructional. Thank you. However, at the same time, in my humble opinion, the way he plays is a bit misleading. Yes, there are a lot of instructional moves, and it is incredibly helpful, but he plays theory moves all the time, so he avoids getting in a bad position from the start. That's not representative of the issues a player of 1200 to 1800 rating faces while climbing. A 1500 player will not play theory against a lot of openings, and therefore she will get a bad position. For example, when he encounters a King's Indian, he plays theoretical moves, and obviously he gets amazing positions. Well, I don't really play d4, so I think he means when I play the King's Indian. But a lower-rated player does not have that kind of theoretical information. That's why I think, even though the speedrun is really instructional and good fun, at the same time it does not reflect appropriately the experience of an improving player. So, very well thought out points. So the area where I think, there's a slightly false assumption is in this spot where he says that's a 1500 player will not play theory against a lot of openings. There's no inherent reason that you wouldn't play theory against a lot of openings. And that's exactly my point, right? If you put that work in to get good positions in most games, you're going to boost your improvement to the maximum, even if you might at first experience, if you're sort of a player who tries to avoid theory and play the London system or something, and then you switch to the Danish, there's going to be growing pains, but once you pass them, you're going to get rewarded for it. And I agree that part of the experience of climbing is playing bad positions and screwing up, and I don't do that. And I agree that is a deficiency. That's something that I don't cover as much, how to get out of bad positions. I've done it once or twice, and it's something that I might incorporate. So yeah, I totally acknowledge that. And that's something I'll think about for future lessons.